The story begins in the quiet intimacy of Claire's small apartment, bathed in the soft light of an early morning sun. The space is sparse yet cozy, the kind of environment that mirrors Claire's current emotional state. Stripped down, careful, and intensely private, she sits at the edge of the bed, her fingers trembling slightly as she removes her wedding ring for what she knows is the final time. Every motion is deliberate. The ring slips from her finger like a small surrender of years. She has invested in a relationship that has betrayed her trust. Her eyes are rimmed red, evidence of nights spent silently crying, alone, replaying memories that once brought her joy. The room is almost painfully silent, punctuated only by the faint sound of the city waking outside her window. There is a tension in her movements, a careful choreography between grief and the nascent stirrings of resolve. Claire's internal struggle is palpable. She wants to let herself fully mourn, yet there's a subtle drive to reclaim her life, to stand up from this moment as someone who will no longer allow herself to be defined by betrayal. The apartment, in its muted simplicity, becomes an extension of her psyche, a safe haven where she can confront her heartbreak without the intrusion of the outside world. The symbolism of removing the wedding ring is powerful, representing both loss and liberation, a physical acknowledgement of emotional severance that sets the stage for her journey. As Claire sits with her hand bare, the narrative shifts into a series of flashbacks that illuminate the source of her pain and the depth of her husband's betrayal. These glimpses are jagged and raw, late-night texts that hint at secret meetings, whispered conversations overheard when she thought she was alone, and subtle emotional coldness that slowly eroded the intimacy of their marriage. Each memory is precise, almost surgical, highlighting moments where her trust was chipped away piece by piece. The flashbacks are not presented chronologically. Instead, they echo Claire's fragmented emotional state, overlapping the past and present to emphasize the lasting impact of betrayal. Through these recollections, readers sense her disillusionment and the weight of years spent hoping for a husband who had quietly withdrawn, emotionally distant and deceitful. Yet, amid the sorrow, there's a growing awareness in Claire's eyes, an ember of recognition that she deserves more than this hidden life of loneliness and mistrust. These recollections are tinged with regret, but they are not wholly self-pitying. Instead, they prepare the reader to understand the resilience and strength she must summon. This moment deepens the tension, making the audience question how she will reconcile her past pain with the possibility of moving forward. It is a delicate balancing act between heartbreak and the quiet emergence of determination, setting the emotional tone for the scenes to follow. While Claire is immersed in her private grief, the presence of Lila, her best friend, introduces a subtle but important relational dynamic. Lila's entry is understated, offering quiet comfort rather than overt solutions, which reflects Claire's isolated yet supported state. This interaction highlights both her vulnerability and the network of care surrounding her, emphasizing that although she feels profoundly alone in her heartbreak, she is not entirely without connection. Their brief exchange of words, supportive, gentle, and empathetic, underscores Claire's current emotional fragility, while also hinting at the strength she can draw from others. The narrative tension intensifies when an unexpected letter slips under her door, breaking the quiet with the promise of unresolved family drama. It is from her estranged mother, a figure whose absence has loomed over Claire's life, adding layers of unresolved emotional history. The letter sparks immediate curiosity and apprehension. What has her mother written? Why now? This moment operates as a hook, effectively pulling both Claire and the reader into the next layer of conflict. balancing personal betrayal with familial complexity. It is a pivot from introspection to anticipation, creating suspense that propels the narrative forward. The juxtaposition of personal heartbreak with the looming potential of confronting old family wounds enriches the story, setting up emotional stakes that intertwine Claire's personal, relational, and familial challenges. Claire's early marriage is colored by hope, love, and the kind of naive trust that often defines youthful commitment. Initially, she was captivated by Ethan's charm, his effortless confidence, and the attention he lavished on her during the courtship period. Every gesture, late night conversations, small surprises, shared laughter, built a foundation of intimacy that Claire believed would endure. Their marriage began as a seemingly perfect partnership, with dreams of shared adventures, emotional support, and mutual growth. Yet, beneath the surface, subtle shifts began to emerge. Ethan's focus gradually turned toward his career ambitions, leaving emotional gaps in their relationship. His attention became selective, disappearing during times when Claire sought comfort or connection. The emotional neglect, initially sporadic, became a pattern that eroded her sense of security and self-worth. Claire's memories oscillate between the warmth of early love and the sting of betrayal, creating a rich emotional tapestry that underscores her present vulnerabilities. These flashbacks are crucial because they reveal the slow, almost imperceptible process of disillusionment, the kind that leaves scars not from sudden trauma, but from years of unmet expectations. They also highlight Claire's capacity for hope, loyalty, and love, qualities that make her heartbreak more poignant. The juxtaposition between past joy and present pain sets the emotional tone, providing a foundation for understanding her complex psyche and the depth of her struggle with self-identity and trust in the present. Claire's present is shaped not only by her past, but also by the people who surround her. Lila, her loyal and witty best friend, serves as a stabilizing force in Claire's life. With a sharp sense of humor and unwavering support, Lila encourages Claire to reclaim her independence, reminding her that self-worth is not defined by a failed marriage. Lila's presence underscores the importance of chosen family and emotional support. Even when blood relations are complicated, Ethan, her ex-husband, remains a shadow in her memories, a man whose charm masked manipulation and emotional detachment. These recollections fuel Claire's ongoing internal struggle, balancing residual affection with the recognition of his harmful behavior. Claire's mother, Janet, is a more complicated figure. She embodies both love and regret, having pushed Claire toward early marriage out of her own misguided sense of security and societal expectation. Janet's presence evokes feelings of both guilt and longing in Claire. The mother-daughter dynamic is fraught with unspoken tensions, mistakes, and missed opportunities for understanding. In the present day, Claire navigates career frustrations, financial independence, and the lingering pain of betrayal. She grapples with the challenge of reconstructing her identity outside the framework of marriage, struggling with fear of failure, self-doubt, and the societal pressures that have shaped her choices. This interplay of supporting characters and ongoing life challenges situates Claire in a rich emotional landscape, showing that her journey toward self-realization is influenced as much by external relationships as by internal resilience. At the heart of Claire's story lies a complex internal conflict. Despite the visible steps toward independence, she battles guilt over the failed marriage, shame about perceived personal inadequacies, and fear of starting over in a world that constantly measures success by stability and conformity. These emotions are compounded by lingering attachments to both her ex-husband and her mother, creating a tension between past obligations and future possibilities. Her mother's sudden revelation that she may be ill and desires reconciliation introduces high external stakes that complicate Claire's personal growth. This development forces Claire to confront unresolved family dynamics while negotiating her own path toward emotional recovery. The narrative tension arises from the balancing act between duty and self-preservation. Claire must navigate feelings of responsibility and love toward her mother without sacrificing the hard-won autonomy she has begun to claim. These stakes also highlight the universal challenge of adult life, managing familial expectations while cultivating one's own identity. The story situates Claire at a critical crossroads. She can allow guilt and fear to dictate her decisions, or she can assert agency, embracing vulnerability as a tool for growth. This duality between internal emotional struggle and external pressures enriches the narrative, creating a layered exploration of heartbreak, self-discovery, and reconciliation. It prepares readers to empathize deeply with Claire, understanding her as a flawed yet resilient protagonist, navigating the intricate dance of love, loss, and personal evolution. Claire's life takes a tangible turn during a mandatory meeting at her new job, an environment she initially approaches with cautious professionalism. The office space is modern and open, filled with the subtle hum of conversation, clicking keyboards, and the occasional burst of laughter. Yet Claire feels a persistent tension under the surface, an inner anxiety about her capabilities and place in this new phase of her life. It is here that she meets Ryan, a 35-year-old architect with a calm, empathetic presence that contrasts sharply with her past experiences. Their introduction is casual, framed by the professional context of the meeting, but the connection is immediate in its understated way. Ryan listens attentively, asks thoughtful questions, and exhibits a warmth that makes Claire feel both understood and at ease. Emotions she hasn't experienced in a long time, subtle gestures, like the way he tilts his head when considering her ideas, or the reassuring smile he offers, create an almost imperceptible chemistry, hinting at a potential emotional bond. Claire notices these cues, but she also hesitates, wary of allowing herself to feel vulnerable after the pain of her previous marriage. This encounter introduces the potential for hope and renewal, but it also reminds her of the fragility of trust. The setting, a professional yet intimate meeting, serves as the perfect backdrop for a narrative pivot where personal growth, budding romance, and professional ambition intersect. It emphasizes that life, even amid heartbreak, has moments that can redirect one's trajectory, sparking the possibility of new beginnings. This meeting plants the seed of change, signaling to the reader that Claire's journey is about to enter a dynamic phase of both external opportunity and internal reckoning. Just as Claire begins to navigate the possibility of moving forward, her ex-husband Ethan reappears unexpectedly due to a shared business transaction connected to her new role. The timing feels almost cruelly ironic, as she is beginning to experience the excitement of her professional and personal resurgence. Ethan's arrival is jarring. The charm that once drew Claire in now strikes her as insincere, layered with the manipulative undertones that she has spent years processing. The encounter forces a confrontation, not necessarily explosive, but emotionally charged, where unspoken grievances, lingering hurt, and unresolved questions come to the surface. His presence disrupts her sense of stability, reminding her that the past is not something easily discarded. This moment illuminates a core narrative tension, the juxtaposition of her desire to move forward against the reality that some emotional threads remain unfinished. The office, previously a neutral ground for professional development, now becomes a crucible for Claire's internal conflict. She is forced to navigate professional decorum while managing the unexpected emotional upheaval, highlighting both her vulnerability and growing resilience. This twist serves as a narrative catalyst, compelling Claire to confront emotions she had hoped to bury and pushing her toward decisions that will define her path forward. The encounter with Ethan is a stark reminder that the past has a persistent presence, but it also provides an opportunity for Claire to reclaim power over her own narrative, rather than remain a passive participant in it. In the aftermath of these events, Claire experiences a complex emotional shift. She recognizes that simply moving on from her past is insufficient. She must actively reclaim her life to create meaningful change. This realization sparks concrete actions. She applies for a leadership role within her company, signaling her desire to assert agency and embrace professional growth despite lingering self-doubt. Simultaneously, she reconnects with estranged friends and family members, including the cautious re-engagement with her mother, reflecting a willingness to address unresolved personal dynamics. The narrative emphasizes the interplay between internal and external transformation. Claire's professional ambitions mirror her emotional journey, each success reinforcing the other. At the same time, the subtle presence of Ryan suggests the cautious opening of her heart to new love, a tentative yet promising step toward vulnerability and connection after betrayal. This decision point marks a turning moment in her story, where Claire is no longer solely defined by heartbreak or guilt. She begins to actively shape her trajectory, balancing caution with courage, ambition with empathy, and self-reliance with openness to support. The inciting incident, therefore, functions as a pivot from stagnation to action, creating both immediate narrative tension and a trajectory for character development. It underscores a key theme: that life's challenges, whether relational, professional, or familial, require conscious engagement, and that reclaiming agency often necessitates confronting discomfort, embracing uncertainty, and daring to envision a renewed sense of self. As Claire navigates her burgeoning life post-divorce, emotional vulnerability becomes a central struggle, particularly in her interactions with Ryan. His gentle, empathetic nature challenges her carefully constructed walls. Every small act of kindness, a supportive comment during a project discussion, an understanding smile in a tense moment, forces Claire to confront the deeply ingrained fear that opening her heart could lead to betrayal once again. The internal tug-of-war between desire for connection and fear of being hurt is heightened by her awareness of past mistakes, creating a rich tension that drives her emotional arc. Complicating matters further is her mother, Janet, whose deteriorating health introduces both urgency and complexity. Their previously strained relationship requires Claire to summon forgiveness and empathy, balancing personal resentment with the instinct to care. The dual pressures of exploring new romantic possibilities while addressing familial obligations create a constant emotional friction. Claire's days are filled with a mixture of longing, apprehension, and responsibility, leaving her exhausted yet determined. These layers of emotional struggle establish stakes that are both intimate and universal, highlighting the challenge of reclaiming one's life while negotiating delicate relationships. The narrative tension here is not about external danger, but about navigating the minefield of trust, love, and familial duty, a tension that resonates deeply because it mirrors real human experience. Every interaction with Ryan and her mother is infused with subtext: the fear of emotional exposure, the hope for reconciliation, and the lingering shadows of past disappointments. This emotional landscape provides a fertile ground for character growth, compelling Claire to confront what she truly values and who she wants to become in the face of vulnerability. The emotional turbulence is compounded by Ethan, Claire's ex-husband, whose presence reintroduces manipulation and subtle intimidation, whether through professional interference or veiled attempts to regain emotional leverage. Ethan unsettles Claire's carefully constructed progress. His charm and persistence are dangerous, precisely because they exploit her lingering empathy and unresolved feelings, forcing her to navigate boundaries without succumbing to guilt or fear. This is further complicated by the social environment in which Claire operates. Colleagues gossip, speculating about her personal life, while friends offer conflicting advice, some urging caution, others encouraging bold steps toward independence and new romance. Each external opinion adds layers of pressure, amplifying her internal conflicts and making even simple decisions feel fraught with potential consequence. Claire is constantly negotiating between external perception and internal desire, a balancing act that demands mental, emotional, and sometimes physical energy. The resulting tension manifests in subtle ways: sleepless nights, moments of overthinking, and the fear that every step forward could be sabotaged by her own doubts or external interference. These dynamics underscore how personal growth is rarely linear, particularly when one is entangled with emotionally manipulative figures and socially invested observers. They also illustrate the high stakes of emotional agency. Claire's ability to assert herself and maintain autonomy is continually tested. Each interaction becomes a microcosm of her broader journey, reflecting the dual challenge of reclaiming personal power while navigating the unpredictable currents of relationships and social scrutiny. This interplay of external and internal pressures keeps the narrative charged, maintaining reader engagement while deepening empathy for Claire's predicament. Claire's internal struggle intensifies as she confronts her fear of repeating past mistakes, compounded by anxiety over opening herself to new love. While Ryan represents hope and authenticity, her own insecurities threaten to sabotage potential happiness. Self-doubt manifests in moments of hesitation, misinterpreted cues, and second-guessing her judgment in both professional and personal matters. This anxiety is magnified when Claire uncovers a shocking revelation. Ethan's betrayal extended beyond emotional infidelity to financial deception. The discovery of hidden financial manipulation shatters any remaining trust and reinforces her fear that past patterns could repeat. Yet paradoxically, it also ignites a spark of empowerment. Confronted with tangible evidence of manipulation, Claire is forced to recognize her resilience and capacity for assertive action. The catalyst event crystallizes her internal struggle into a decisive moment. She must confront the lingering influence of her ex while protecting her independence and pursuing her personal ambitions. This duality, fear and empowerment coexisting, drives the rising tension of the narrative, setting the stage for active decision-making and transformation. The emotional stakes become clearer. Claire cannot simply move forward passively. She must reclaim agency over her finances, her heart, and her sense of self by weaving together emotional vulnerability, relational complexity, and the revelation of betrayal. This section intensifies the narrative arc, propelling Claire toward a turning point where her choices will define the trajectory of both her professional growth and personal life. It underscores a central theme. Empowerment often arises from confronting the very sources of one's fear, and growth is inseparable from both struggle and courage. The narrative reaches its emotional zenith as Claire confronts Ethan in a public setting, either at a high-stakes business event or a family gathering where emotions are already heightened. The environment amplifies the tension, colleagues gossiping in hushed tones, family members exchanging wary glances, and the subtle hum of background chatter create a charged atmosphere that mirrors Claire's internal storm. She approaches the confrontation with a combination of careful strategy and raw emotion, determined to expose the truth about Ethan's manipulations without succumbing to humiliation or rash anger. The revelations are precise and damning. She lays bare his emotional deceit, financial betrayals, and manipulative tactics, weaving a narrative that is indisputable and compelling. The audience, friends, family, and professional contacts watches as the carefully concealed faults of Ethan come to light. The public nature of the confrontation underscores Claire's evolution from a woman silenced by past hurt to one who asserts her voice with clarity and authority. The tension is palpable as the room collectively absorbs the magnitude of her disclosure. By exposing Ethan's actions in front of those who matter, Claire reclaims agency over the narrative of her life, shifting from victimhood to empowerment. This moment is not merely about humiliation or revenge. It is a statement of self-respect and courage, signaling to everyone present, including herself, that she refuses to be undermined or diminished again. The carefully orchestrated confrontation serves as both an emotional catharsis and a narrative pivot, propelling the story toward resolution while leaving the audience invested in Claire's journey of reclamation and integrity. Amid the confrontation, Claire's emotional expression reaches its peak, not with explosive anger, but with profound hurt and vulnerability, demonstrating a depth of feeling that transcends mere resentment. Her voice trembles slightly as she recounts the betrayal, yet there is a steady undercurrent of resolve that communicates strength and self-possession. She articulates her pain with honesty, allowing those around her to witness not only the consequences of Ethan's actions, but also the dignity she maintains despite them. This moment underscores the narrative's emotional complexity. True power emerges from acknowledging hurt rather than suppressing it. While the intensity of the moment could feel isolating, Ryan's quiet presence provides a grounding force. He does not speak or intervene. Instead, his calm, supportive demeanor signals solidarity, reinforcing the idea that Claire is not alone in her struggle. His presence validates her pain while offering reassurance, creating a subtle emotional counterpoint to the public exposure of betrayal. This combination of vulnerability and support illustrates a profound truth. Reclaiming dignity does not require severing all connections, but rather embracing relationships that respect and uphold one's boundaries. Through this interplay of self-expression and empathetic presence, Claire experiences an emotional release that has been building throughout the story. It is a moment of recognition that personal growth is intertwined with community, trust, and the ability to receive support while standing firmly in one's own truth. Just as the confrontation concludes and the emotional intensity begins to ebb, Claire receives unexpected news. Her mother's health is improving, signaling the possibility of reconciliation and healing within her family. This twist operates on both narrative and symbolic levels. On the one hand, it provides relief from the tension that has dominated Claire's emotional landscape, offering a tangible reason for hope and renewed connection. On the symbolic level, her mother's recovery mirrors Claire's own journey towards self-empowerment and emotional renewal. The news reinforces the story's overarching themes of redemption, forgiveness, and the cyclical nature of healing. Just as Claire confronts and resolves past wounds with Ethan, She is now presented with an opportunity to rebuild family ties that were previously fraught with resentment and miscommunication. This resolution creates a layered emotional payoff for the reader, emphasizing that personal transformation is rarely linear, but can be reinforced by meaningful reconciliation with loved ones. Simultaneously, the twist allows for a softening of the narrative's intensity, transitioning from public confrontation and emotional catharsis to intimate, hopeful reflection. Claire's ability to embrace both professional assertiveness and personal vulnerability signals the culmination of her character arc. She is no longer defined by betrayal, fear, or shame, but by resilience, empathy, and a conscious choice to engage with life fully. The climax and twist together provide a satisfying convergence of narrative threads, emotional resolution, relational support, and symbolic renewal, leaving both Claire and the audience poised for a hopeful denouement. In the resolution phase, Claire fully embraces her personal and professional growth, embodying a sense of empowerment that contrasts sharply with her earlier vulnerability. She accepts a promotion at her workplace, a tangible acknowledgement of her competence, diligence, and leadership skills. This decision represents not only career advancement, but also a reclamation of confidence that had been eroded by past betrayals and self-doubt. Simultaneously, Claire launches a small side project, a creative or entrepreneurial endeavor that allows her to explore her passions outside the corporate framework. This initiative is emblematic of her autonomy, signaling a willingness to invest in herself, take risks, and define success on her own terms. Importantly, she also establishes healthy boundaries with both her family and her ex-husband. With Ethan, these boundaries are firm but civil, protecting her emotional and financial independence while limiting his influence over her life. With her mother, Claire balances care with assertiveness, allowing for reconciliation without sacrificing her own needs. These actions collectively illustrate a protagonist who has transformed adversity into agency, demonstrating that empowerment is as much about internal growth as external achievement. Through these steps, the narrative reinforces the idea that reclaiming one's life requires deliberate choices, self-awareness, and the courage to assert one's value. Claire's arc moves from a place of reactive suffering to proactive self-determination, creating a sense of fulfillment that is both earned and relatable. Parallel to her personal growth, Claire's relationship with Ryan develops gradually and meaningfully, emphasizing trust, mutual respect, and emotional intimacy. Unlike the fast-paced, manipulative dynamics of her past, their connection evolves through small gestures and shared experiences. Thoughtful texts, quiet dinners, and supportive conversations that allow Claire to test her vulnerability safely. Ryan's consistent empathy and attentiveness provide a stabilizing presence, contrasting sharply with Ethan's inconsistency and manipulation. Through these interactions, Claire learns to navigate the complexities of love without compromising her boundaries or self-respect. Their relationship embodies a slow burn approach that prioritizes emotional depth over surface-level attraction, reinforcing the story's thematic focus on authentic connection and healing. Each interaction strengthens Claire's confidence in her ability to trust again, highlighting the narrative payoff of patient, conscious relational growth. The slow, deliberate development of their romance also mirrors Claire's broader journey. Just as she has rebuilt her career, reclaimed autonomy, and established boundaries, she approaches love with intention, caution, and openness. This balance between vulnerability and discernment underscores her maturity, illustrating how personal empowerment extends to the ability to form healthy, supportive relationships. Claire's emotional journey culminates in acts that symbolize both closure and celebration of resilience. She writes a heartfelt letter to her younger self, acknowledging the pain endured in her marriage, the confusion of betrayal, and the fear of starting over. Yet the letter also celebrates her perseverance, self-discovery, and strength, providing a symbolic reconciliation with her past and a narrative bridge between who she was and who she has become externally. This internal transformation is reflected in a small, intimate gathering at her apartment, where friends and family come together to celebrate her milestones and support her renewed independence. The event is a tangible representation of regained control, illustrating that Claire's life is now defined by her choices, her values, and her cultivated relationships rather than past traumas. The gathering blends joy with reflection, creating a scene that is emotionally resonant and visually symbolic of her empowerment arc. It signals not just recovery, but flourishing. Claire has navigated heartbreak, familial complexities, and personal insecurities to emerge as a self-possessed, empathetic, and confident individual. Through professional achievement, relational growth, and emotional closure, Claire embodies a protagonist who has reclaimed her narrative, offering readers a satisfying resolution that celebrates resilience, agency, and the transformative power of confronting life's challenges with courage and grace. The story reaches its gentle, reflective conclusion as Claire sits alone on her balcony, enveloped by the warm hues of a sunset. The city skyline stretches before her, bathed in the soft, fading light, symbolizing both the end of a difficult chapter and the quiet promise of new beginnings. She has her journal open, pen in hand, and a calm smile graces her face, a smile born not of escapism, but of understanding and acceptance. The quietness of the scene underscores the internal peace she has cultivated. The bustling world below contrasts with the serenity she has achieved within herself. This moment allows the reader to witness Claire's emotional evolution in its purest form. She has processed grief, reconciled her past, and reached a point where she can observe life with both gratitude and clarity. The journal itself serves as a symbolic anchor, representing her journey of self-discovery, reflection, and empowerment. Each written word acts as a bridge between memory, acknowledgement, and intention, allowing Claire to articulate the lessons learned and the resilience she has developed. This quiet scene emphasizes introspection over dramatic confrontation, highlighting that true closure is often subtle, internal, and deeply personal. It demonstrates how a protagonist can achieve satisfaction and completeness, not through external validation, but by embracing self-compassion, clarity, and the quiet joy of witnessing one's own growth. The sunset becomes a metaphorical backdrop, a visual manifestation of her ability to transition from past pain to present empowerment and hopeful anticipation for the future. Claire's emotional closure is further emphasized through the symbolic act of mailing her ex-husband a letter of forgiveness. This gesture is not an attempt at reconciliation or reopening old wounds. Rather, it is an assertion of her autonomy and a conscious step toward inner peace. Writing and sending the letter allows Claire to release lingering resentment and reclaim her emotional energy, demonstrating her ability to transform pain into empowerment. The act is deliberate, reflective, and quiet, illustrating her control over her own narrative. It signifies a culmination of all the emotional growth she has undergone, from confronting betrayal to establishing boundaries, and from navigating family tension to embracing personal agency. By choosing forgiveness on her own terms, Claire models a profound psychological maturity, letting go not because someone else deserves absolution, but because she does. This action underscores a thematic resonance of the story, that emotional freedom is self-directed, and that closure is an active, conscious choice, rather than a passive state imposed by circumstance. Through this symbolic gesture, the narrative conveys the universality of healing, the necessity of self-compassion, and the transformative power of taking ownership of one's emotional journey. It also provides a satisfying narrative catharsis, giving the reader a sense of completeness as Claire steps into her renewed life, unburdened by the weight of past betrayals or unresolved tensions. The scene is tenderly enriched by a subtle romantic moment. Ryan leaves a coffee at Claire's door, accompanied by a simple, heartfelt note stating, "Here's to new beginnings." This understated gesture encapsulates the tone of their relationship, slow, respectful, and built on mutual support rather than dependency or haste. Claire smiles upon seeing it, a response that reflects appreciation and warmth rather than emotional reliance. It signifies the potential for love that is healthy, balanced, and rooted in trust, complementing her journey of self-discovery. The closing image solidifies her narrative arc. Claire closes her journal, surveys the glowing city skyline, and whispers, "I am enough, I am whole." This line resonates as both affirmation and declaration, symbolizing the integration of her past experiences with her present growth and future possibilities. It conveys a deep, self-earned confidence that is both intimate and universally relatable. The combination of introspection, symbolic acts, and tender relational gestures provides a cinematic, emotionally satisfying conclusion. It encapsulates the story's central themes: resilience, self-empowerment, and the balance between independence and connection, while leaving the audience with a resonant, hopeful impression. Claire's final moment is quiet, yet powerful, portraying a protagonist who has fully reclaimed her narrative, achieved emotional equilibrium, and embraced the promise of life on her own terms.